quorum.
Okay.
Jim online.
Oh, I didn't even. Okay.
I'm online and I have a hard leave at 6:45.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. All right. All right, welcome everyone to the Monday, May 8th meeting of the Green Bay Planning Commission. We'll start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jake Miller.
Present.
Commissioner or Alder Jim Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Sydney Bremer. Present. Commissioner Darius Daniel.
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky. I can't remember. Is absent. I don't remember.
Ken is excused.
Okay, all right, Ken is excused. And Commissioner Michael Craddock. All right, moving on to approval of the agenda for the May 8th, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Planning Commission. So moved.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Remmer, second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to approval of the minutes from the April 24th, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Motion approved.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to regular business and starting with a public hearing. The public hearing has been properly posted and notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on agenda item number 1, public hearing on the request to allow a conditional use permit for townhomes to be established in the low-density residential zoning district located at Richmond Street, submitted by Mao and Associates on behalf of Habitat for Humanity property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This site may look familiar. This was on our last agenda as well. A refresh on the project. It is a 14-lot subdivision for single-family homes. At the last meeting, we approved a subdivision variance for lot size and lot width, and then also the vacation of this cul-de-sac here as part of that larger development. Again, this is Lime Kiln, Manitowoc, and then I think Main Street is right up here. Future land use shows this for our medium high density housing area. The proposal is consistent with that. And then again, the zoning is R1 for this district or for this parcel. Adjoining this is some R3 because there are apartments back here, a lot of R1, but a lot of mixed housing going on in this neighborhood. 1 families, 2 families, apartment complexes, some commercial, so very varied neighborhood. So as I said in the agenda item, we're looking for a CUP for the townhomes. So that is conditional use in R1 for that use. So again, the plat here showing all 14 lots. This is the 1 outlot for stormwater management. The lots that are on this side here will be used for single family detached homes. And then the lots proposed here are for single family attached homes, which we all refer to as townhomes. So kind of more of a visual of that is that the ones that wrap around on this side are going to be the standalone detached homes, and then the attached structures will be here. In your staff report, I did give the details about the lot size requirements that we have for those if the CUP is approved, and these lots do meet those requirements. Same thing for building height. I know there's sometimes the thought the townhomes are going to be taller than a regular single family home. All of them have the same height requirements and all fall below the height maximums for the R1 district. So no worries there. It does meet all the other sections of code. Just to go through a couple of visuals for the rest of the presentation. This was provided to me by the applicant, Habitat for Humanity. So just kind of looking at the scale of these homes, you know, the lots are a little bit smaller, the housing product is a little bit smaller, but the townhomes and the single family homes do complement each other very well as far as architectural style and architectural form. The only difference is that some are attached and some are detached. So we feel like they're very complementary to one another. They're also very sensitive to the existing neighborhood that they are in. We feel like the size of the homes and the size of the lots were done thoughtfully, considering the types of housing that are in this neighborhood and other types of commercial in this neighborhood. This is a different rendering that shows different color variety. You know, that's not really part of the request, the colors that they're using. It can be, I suppose, a CUP can add a lot of things onto. But they're just showing that there's gonna be some variety in the textures and the setbacks on the home, so they're gonna have a higher quality of architectural form there. Also in your packet, they had some of the renderings for the site themselves to kind of show you window placement, elevations, the floor plans themselves. So all that was in your packet. I just wanted to give you that to get the visual of what we're talking about. So a couple other things to discuss. There was a neighborhood meeting held on March 21st. There were 4 community members in attendance. They had a couple of just generalized questions about the project itself. We heard a lot about children being displaced in this neighborhood. Apparently, because it's a vacant lot, kids use it as a park, a place to play. Aside from the fact that this is a private lot and that probably shouldn't be happening anyway. I did put in your report how close the neighborhood is to other parks. So BT Pride Park is 0.3 miles or a 6-minute walk from there. The Croc Center is not much further away and does have that private path that goes right past BT Park up to the Croc Center. So there's some accessibility there for actual public parks. So if that is an issue that they were having. Also, you know, there's always the question of, is traffic going to increase here? Given the location of this, we're guessing probably not. And by guessing, I mean, I'm 90% confident that traffic will only increase from the neighbors or people visiting. As you can see here, if there's going to be any cut through traffic, it's likely to happen on Vader because that's the connection between Manitowoc Road and Main Street. The connection here is going to be Ricky Drive extension to Richmond. So there'd be really no purpose of cutting through on this road when Vader already exists, would be wider. You know, there's more of a reason to drive here than there would be to drive through this neighborhood, especially because it's not going to connect back in this area. So we don't believe that that traffic will have any noticeable increase aside from the homes that will be living or the people who will be living there. I think the main concern that was expressed from the neighbors is they want to see single family homes, but townhomes are single family homes. You know, the only noticeable difference is that there are attached structures versus the detached structures. I did add some density information in your staff report. So the comprehensive plan calls for the medium to high density housing. It specifically calls out townhomes to be appropriate for that. The expected density is usually 8 housing units per acre in that district for future land use. For R1 zoning, we typically look for 4 to 8 housing units per acre, and then this proposal has 5.2 housing units per acre. So that's an appropriate density for both the zoning district and for the comprehensive plan recommendation. Also cited in here the land use development standards that are additional to the single family attached in the R1 outside of just regular site plan review. And then obviously our regular 7 points about conditional use permits. So with all of that, you know, we find this to be an appropriate transition throughout and into the neighborhood here. There's already a good mix. This is just adding an additional type of housing to this neighborhood. And given that they are completely code compliant outside of the CUP for the use of that attached structure, we are supportive of this. And the applicant is here if there are questions when we get to the actual item.
Okay, thank you, Steph. All right, now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak in favor, in opposition, or would just like to add comments. Is there anyone wishing to? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding action item number 2. Consideration with possible action on the request to allow a conditional use permit for townhomes to be established in the low density residential zoning district located at Richmond Street, submitted by Mao and Associates on behalf of Habitat for Humanity property owner.
Thank you. We are recommending approval. Usually with CUPs, we have conditions. It's a conditional use permit. There doesn't seem to be anything egregious about their site plan, or we didn't see any red flags that came up. If there is anything that you were looking to add, but usually we just add the caveat of, compliance with all the regulations in our code.
Thank you. Good.
What is the finish treatment on the sides and the back
The townhomes,
of the townhomes?
it would be the same as whatever's on the front. I think that they're doing a variation of materials and colors, but we require four-side design for that, just like we would at home.
The elevations didn't show that, so I wasn't sure.
We can clarify the state, but it would be required as part of site plan. You can't just put a concrete wall on the back of the home.
I'm glad.
But they may not have the exact materials all picked out yet.
Yeah. I imagine that's what's available. I mean, we've never been seeing that people propose something and then they have to come back, so we don't want to be too strict with what it is, considering our code is pretty, we have pretty standard language about what's got an architectural finish, things that are durable, so. We'll be keeping that in mind, but if there are any design considerations, those could be added in.
Are we on the action?
No, we're on the action.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Stop, Dave.
Yeah, I will say that I am on the board for Habitat for Humanity, but I do not have any kind of financial
Guys.
ties to this. But I, incentives, but it seems to be a great project. Just from being on the board, a lot of the things that are going on, I just think it's definitely gonna elevate this area in this community. So I will be voting for this, but I did want to disclose that I am on the board.
And I'll say if this whole neighborhood is all Habitat, I mean, I haven't seen a bad looking Habitat for Humanity home. They've been doing really good work.
Thank you.
It's all you, right?
I just voted.
But every house that I've seen that they put up, the most recent one that I see often, I think right on Shawano, right by Gray Street. So, I think it's gonna be a really nice little neighborhood over there.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any further discussion? Got a motion by Commissioner Braddock, second by Vice Chair Miller. Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will be moving forward to city council for, what is this? 16th? Okay. For May 16th. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 3, public hearing. Again, this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information. We will go ahead and open the public hearing on number 3, public hearing on a request to allow a conditional use permit to exceed the maximum building height in the business park district located at 825 Hinkle Street. Submitted by Bayland Builders on behalf of Russell Metals property owner.
Thank you. So to familiarize you with the location, this is off of West Main Street. Walmart is right here. That's for everybody. This is the building in question. There is an existing. Oh my gosh, it's kind of bugging.
yeah. There you go.
This is why we get gatekeepers, okay?
Yes.
So this is an existing metal structure. It's whoever's on the phone call, if you could just keep yourself muted while we're giving the presentation, please.
No.
Anyway, sorry. Where was I? Okay, this is an existing structure. It is surrounded primarily by warehousing and other industrial uses outside of some larger commercial here, Festival Foods, Walmart. The future land use calls for business park light industrial and commercial split. The zoning map kind of looks exactly the same. The entire structure is zoned for business park. So here's that existing building, and with an expansion, they're proposing an addition that goes on the north side of the building in the business park. district, the maximum height is 35 feet. You can exceed that with no maximum via CUP. They're only looking to go up to 38 feet and 6 inches, so not much of a deviation from the code. We do have, again, the conditional use points in your staff report for review. And that is all we have for now.
Thank you. So now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would favor, oppose, or just giving information. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record.
Sorry, I was having issues with my phone. This is Mitch with Bayland. I don't have anything to say about the project, but I'm willing to answer any questions that anyone has.
Okay, thank you very much, Mitch. All right, is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 4. Consideration with possible action on a request to allow a conditional use permit to exceed the maximum building height in the Business Park District located at 825 Hinkle Street, submitted by Bayland Builders on behalf of Russell Metals property owner.
Thank you. We are recommending approval with 2 conditions, the general compliance with the municipal code, and then also specifying that height, and that if that were to change at all, they would have to come back to amend the CUP through Plan Commission, City Council.
Okay. So they're looking for 3.5 feet.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Is there any discussion amongst the commission?
I'm not worried about the 3.5 minutes. But there is mention, I believe, in your report that a number of the other buildings are fairly high. Do they also exceed the 35?
I would assume so. It's kind of hard to tell from a car.
Mhm.
We don't unfortunately have building heights recorded, we only have what we have. But a lot of the buildings appear to be taller than that, so it will definitely not have any, it won't pose any harm to any of the surrounding buildings.
It won't be a sore gun at all.
No.
Thank you. I move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Brimmer, second by Commissioner Praddick. Any further discussion? Hearing none, with the vote, all those in favor,
Aye.
any opposed? All right, and then that will go forward to City Council for May 16th. Moving on to item number 5, which is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. We will now open the public hearing on item number 5, public hearing on amendments to various sections of the zoning code, chapter 44, article 14, sections 44-1580 related to development standards for short-term rentals.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your first.
Oh, I did that way wrong. 16. Sorry, it was article 16. I did my Roman numerals wrong. I'm sorry, my bad. All right. Okay, I know.
Well, let me give you a little background, during the public hearing. So a little bit of history. So there was a Wisconsin Assembly bill that was introduced in 2016. It was not adopted, but it addressed short-term rentals. So at that time, and Logan may know more, this is, Logan Wood, attorney for the city. So you can correct me whenever you like. And it was pretty much, I think, can do whatever you want type of legislation. That didn't get adopted, but in response to and the increase in short-term rentals that were happening throughout the community, and if you don't know what a short-term rental is, it's a rental for less than 28 days. Over 28 days is just a month-to-month rental, right? Where you don't have to live in the home, and you can rent out that. Or that unit, living unit. So that would apply to new housing, that would apply to non-conforming housing, grandfathered housing, housing in industrial districts. There's a livable unit there, you have the right to use it for that. So the city adopted some regulations in 2016 to kind of address some of those concerns. In 2017, Wisconsin Act 59, the Right to Rent Act. Didn't put my other quote on there, but was approved. That did not match the 2016 Assembly Bill or the city's adopted codes in their entirety. We had not updated the code since then. Just this past January, fees were increased from basically $100 for your first application and $100 for renewal. They increased that to $500 for the first and $250 for the renewal, mainly because of the massively increased amount of staff time it takes to manage the short-term rentals, which, believe me, are labor intensive. And then we also acquired access to a software called Granicus, and it's a short-term rental tracking software. So in what it was. So Alder Weary sent in a request in October of 2022 to the city to take a look at short-term rentals. Obviously, he's the alder for the area around the stadium. Receives a lot of correspondence. And he basically had asked to review it and propose any possible modifications. And in your staff report, it goes into more detail if you don't remember from October, when he sent that forward. City staff looked at it, Attorney's office put together a memo that's in your packet, which kind of shows you what our ability would be to add to the regulations, and then some suggestions. Staff looked at it and we kind of came up with a series of 7 changes. There's some regular grammatical changes and that kind of stuff, but these are the substantive changes. And the groups that looked at it were our inspection division, planning division, and law. So you kind of have the legal aspect, the administrators and the enforcers all kind of taking a look at it. So, and you can see these all in your code. If it's bolded and underlined, it's new text. If it's straight through, it's obviously text that's being removed. So we added advertising as evidence for short-term rentals. One of the big problems that we have is proving you're using it as a rental. We can find the listing online. We can even find in our new software, which I'm going to show you some screenshots, that it was rented and had reviews, but that is really not any proof that it was really done, that it was actually rented. But by adding the advertising as evidence, and it's in better language than I put up here, that should help with that. We removed the state of Wisconsin tourist rooming house permit. The state of Wisconsin does not require that. We removed the state of Wisconsin sales and use tax permit. The state doesn't require it, but municipalities are allowed to require it. We had, but I have no reason why we still require it. Basically registering with the state that you're a business. But they have to register with the county anyway. So they're registering. We added proof for a condo association approval. We've had quite a few condos come in, condo owners or tenants come in, do a short-term rental, and the association calls later saying they're not allowed to do that. I'm like, well, that's private regulation, that's beyond us. But at least we can catch it on the front end. We added proof of approval by a property owner for a tenant or a management company. So a lot of times a tenant will try to sublet if you're, had done that ever in the past. They will do it as a short-term rental, especially if in there in a pristine area that is popular for that. Also, management companies have now kind of gotten into the game where we have some management companies that have 50, 60 units that they're using a short-term rental.
Wow.
Basically a hotel room. And sometimes the owners don't necessarily realize what they're doing. They're managing the properties. Your manager could be a sibling, it could be a company, but it's a representative. So we added proof that the owner knows. We shifted the June 1st renewal date. Every year on June 1st, they run for 1 year, from June 1st to May 31st. We shifted that to July 1st to June 1st to match up with the Brown County Health Department timing to do their inspections. They do an annual renewal. They don't have to have that done until July 1st. So we had this weird gap in between. So we adjusted that, and we detailed the placard placement and the information that's included on that placard. So even though that hadn't been enforced in the past, basically you're required to show a placard to the right of way, shows it's short-term rental and gives the name and number and possibly email of who they need to contact if there's an issue. So it's the good neighbor policy, right? You generally know your neighbors, even if they're renters. You have an issue, go talk to them first before you call the police or do anything else. So that's sort of that same type of situation. If you want to go down to the next one. So this is kind of what really led us to that. So our records for the city show we have a little under 300 short-term rentals in the city of Green Bay. Not all of them are accurately permitted, haven't been renewed, whatnot, but around 300, 275, 300. This software, which we actually get through with the Convention and Visitor Bureau or the Chamber, one of the two. The county gets it, we can all link in, shows that there's 622 short-term rental units in the greater Green Bay area. 17 were registered in the last 30 days. We get about 20 every month, if not more. And then out of all the listings, short and long terms, we have 1,000. So you can see that Granix is pulling up a lot of rentals. And when you look on the map, now this is not scientific by any means, but the green dots are compliant, the red dots are unknown to be compliant. So generally what this software will do is it scours the web. It looks at over 20 different listing sites, pulls off applications. It goes and checks reporting for state taxes. And it pulls those up. And so if those addresses don't match with permits, it flags them. So you can see the red compared to the green, it's drastic. So I understand the holders' concern and some of the neighbors' concerns, but I just kind of wanted to give you that visual. And then if you flip down to the next one, this is when you click on an individual property, it'll bring up their listing. So it talks about how many bedrooms it has, talks about everything. And then on the right-hand side is an activity timeline. This is one of 3 sheets. And it'll have, so it'll have basically documented rentals. You can click into those. It will have the reviews. It will have the names of the management companies. It'll pull up just massive data. And all this data is basically being used to determine what is a short-term rental and what's not. They are very prolific. They have some pretty negative consequences that you can read some of that in the attorney memo. The biggest one that we really see beyond being nuisance and disrupting to neighborhood is the loss of affordable housing. There's many people that were renting on a regular fixed 6-month, 12-month lease. They go down to a month-to-month, and some short-term rental people will move them as soon as they get tax season comes along, or they get an event. This has a pretty bad social situation of inconsistent housing for people, especially kids having to switch schools, being displaced. And also just that you're constantly having to move, that's costly. And it's just, we believe it's adding to potential homelessness situations. And you all have heard our shortage of housing. Well, about 650 units pulled off of the living list for affordable or for any housing. Doesn't necessarily mean that affordable. But so that is kind of it. The changes are not super drastic. Our code was done pretty well back in 2016. But what it really does is it clarifies and it, I don't know how you want to put it, it kind of gives us a little more backing for when we have to do enforcement actions. Probably not the right term, but.
No, I think what you said is accurate. I mean, it's also just about efficiency on both sides, both from the end user for the applicant as well as for staff on the other side as well. So both sides are benefiting from this.
All right, so it's a public hearing. So just, okay, all right. All right, so now we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak in favor, opposition, or would just like to give information on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 6. Consideration with possible action on amendments to various sections of the zoning code, chapter 44, article 16, section 44-1580, related to development standards for short-term rentals.
Thank you. And what you have, so you have your staff report, obviously. The straight through code, so you can kind of read it all together, and then the memo. We are recommending approval of the changes as proposed.
All right, thank you.
I do have a question. So going back to the map with the red and the green.
That red is bad.
Yeah,
All of
red's
the reds
bad.
are orange. They kind of looks orange to me. I'm not gonna lie. Hey, to me, salmon.
Yeah.
Right, and this is a static map, so obviously, you know, this is, I think this is Lombardi.
Yeah, and that yellow line on the
So,
bottom.
showing
of that.
stuff underneath, so this isn't in the city per se. And this can all be filtered as well. I just did a quick screenshot.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
Is
So-
there an corrective action or action plan for the red? Is there a
Um,
memo or something you send or?
Yeah, so basically what we're going to do, so part of the problem is the way the code was written, it was not easily enforceable. So if it's challenged, it costs the city a lot of time and money to send, Rachel or Logan, to deal with that. And I mean, yes, you do have them get a permit, but the cost is maybe not worth you know, what you get out of it, although that is our responsibility to do that. So what we plan to do, and we do this every year, is now this is going to July, probably the middle of this month. We'll be sending out letters to all short-term rentals that we know of, that we have permits for. We'll also send it out to the listings that we can get from Granicus. So those come out in a spreadsheet. Real easy, send out a postcard or a letter stating, you know, July 1st, you need to get a short-term rental permit or renew the one you have, been identified as either having one or we've identified you as advertising.
Mm,
And then July 1st will roll around, we'll process, they'll take a couple weeks, if not longer. There's a lot of them. Process those and then do another hit on Granicus and then send out either notices to those that have not. Probably do that or start enforcement action.
Well, that's my train of thought.
I mean,
Do the notices go out to the owners or the address?
They currently go to the owners.
The owners. which-
Oh, so it goes to the property owners, not the address of the
Correct.
property.
Okay.
I think that would be
It was-
that's a good clarification. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of issues with, currently with sending notices out to the management. Because the owners will switch management and not tell us. So a good example, we had one that, Roosh Management was managing. And we were sending them out notices, they were in violation. Roosh finally called 6 months later saying, well, we haven't had that for. God, about 8 months,
Thanks.
so it was like, okay, everything goes to the owners.
Okay.
Cause they're gonna,
That makes
wherever the
sense.
tax bill goes, is where they
Right.
get the notice.
That makes
They can
sense.
inform their management. And again, it could be, you know, a sibling or or whoever managing for you that doesn't check the mail regularly.
Well, and I'd say as a landlord, I'm not gonna get anything that's mailed to the property, and I'm not gonna get anything that's probably mailed to the property company. You gotta mail it right to
Right.
my billing address, you know.
Yeah, very
So yeah, that makes sense.
Because you never want to not get your taxes. Go to that
Oh,
same
I
place.
can find you. Come on now. Come on now.
So, but I'm assuming we're probably gonna be not go citing right away.
Right.
We're probably gonna send notice, a second notice in the middle of July saying,
Scare
we
'em.
notice you have not done a short-term rental, but you're still listed. You have X number of days to contact us. If not, then we would start doing the corrective action. I mean, the goal is compliance, right?
Right.
There are some people that just say, I don't care, I'm not doing it. Those are the ones that can follow up on, but there's far less of those than those that will come to us right away.
For those, what is the ramification if they said, I'm not doing it?
Generally citations,
Someone doesn't.
so it's I think it's $500 a day, up to $500 a day. That you're using the short-term rental and not without a permit, especially once you've had a couple notifications. But then they probably go to court and whatever happens with it at that point. But that's where it would go. I'm not sure, but inspection also charges every time they have to go out and do a reinspection,
$50.
75 now.
Oh.
So
Well,
that might, I'm not sure, but that might also be added onto that. depending what type of action needs to be taken.
Okay.
I mean, they may have to go out to site, then that would apply. If they're just gonna look on the software, probably not.
And we were sending out the notices because there's always the possibility that, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, if I wasn't on the planning commission. I wouldn't necessarily know that I would need to have permits for an Airbnb or
Yeah.
something like that,
At
so.
first, we were like, we're not sending out notices, they should know. And then it's like, well, okay, no, we need to send out something, and that was also part of the fee increases. I mean, we're sending out letters, we're doing traffic.
Mailings, right?
So this might be a loaded question, and I'm just gonna ask it because I don't know. But because I did see something on Ask Robin on doing something around this as well. Is there anything where the two actually talk? Or
Yeah, we talked.
Yes.
You know, the same kind of level.
Exactly the same level. Their fees are much higher. They also, I don't know if that was approved while I was gone last week, but they did propose a heavy handed actions for less than 6 days rentals, which is, what the rentals are less than 6 consecutive. Most of them are weekends. Or just, Sunday night. For the Packer game. We talked about that. We, for one, think it would be incredibly costly to enforce. And to find that out. And that there's quite a few ways to just get around it.
Mhm.
So. I'll just give you one easy example. You only want to rent it Saturday night. Well, you're renting it for the whole week. It's the same price as just Saturday. night.
Right,
And you just don't rent it out the rest. I mean, that's an easy go around.
right.
Not violating any laws then, but there's nobody there. So at that point, I mean, what's the point? And with code like this, if those really short-term ones are problematic for us, we can always revisit the code. But I don't think it's been a huge problem, beyond the regular, noise and nuisance kind of thing. For us.
So I've got two big questions. First of all, where in the code does it say what a short-term rental is?
In the definition section.
Okay, which we didn't get because this is just the process of applying for it.
And I can read you that definition.
I would like that because it's 7-day cutoff that has me confused.
Well,
So the state.
You have-
I don't believe I have anything to know itself, no.
I was looking there as well. Yeah. But my
There's actually-
understanding is, the state says we have no control over something that's 7 days or more.
That's
That's correct.
not no control, but
Limited,
limit.
okay?
Can't ban it.
Yeah, we can't ban it.
Can't ban it, but we can still regulate,
We have reasonable regulations, yes.
okay? So I'm wondering the difference between the things that are over or under 7 days. And whether or not this applies to all of them.
So as it stands right now, we don't have any additional regulations in terms of duration. Right, so we don't distinguish between less than 6 days or more than 7 days. 6 nights or 7 days. So we don't have any distinction between those two.
And what about 45 days?
Then that would be, so the limit, the threshold, it has to be less than 28 days to be considered a short-term rental.
Okay.
Otherwise, over that time period, it's considered a month-to-month lease.
Okay, and that's the issue that you were addressing just a minute ago too, Dave. That trying to sort those out would not be worth it. It'd be difficult to do.
Right, and also recognizing that we would still need this code. We couldn't, there's no outright ban or fix for short-term rentals.
But we are addressing everything that's at 28 days or you run shorter or
Yes.
under 28.
We're just addressing that would be considered a short-term rental, it's less than
Okay.
28 days. Yep,
29 and whatever.
yep, yeah, for
These regulations no longer apply,
the short-term rentals.
right?
Other regulations would still apply, but you wouldn't fall under this net, if that makes sense.
I think a search would be really.
The regulations only apply to those that are rented for 28 days or less,
Yes.
right? Okay, I've got that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That helps a lot. And my other general question, you don't have to find the exact language there, Dave, I got the answer. Which is, it's clearer than the exact language. We will all admit. What are people trying to avoid? That has to do with fees, etc.
I
I've
think,
forgotten now what, it's been so long, I've forgotten
I
what we
think-
require of short-term renters.
sure, well, short-term rental owners have to get a permit. And currently they need a state use and sales tax number, which we're proposing to remove. They need to register with the Brown County, room tax. Which they do that through the city, and that's the special tax by the county for hotel rooms. They need to submit proof of insurance, they need to submit, I think I would know this stuff all the time, I had to do it all the time.
Insurance.
That, and proof of a health inspection. Also a lease agreement that they typically would use that address.
No, I'm sorry, that actually
Items
makes
like no
sense.
way, where you can have your fires, that kind of stuff.
Seems-
And then the application itself, which includes owner's name, address, management's name and address. That's-
So that, I bet you a lot of those properties are not. They're not in compliance because of that health, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're talking about like paint on the peeling paint, 'cause I've seen some of the short-term rentals in Green Bay that are not near the stadium and. I mean, they're pretty on the inside, but the outside you would never guess.
And the health department does a yearly renewal of that health inspection. What I really think a lot of it is, it's either ignorance of not knowing they need
I
one.
think that that's probably.
But another, the ones who kind of do some pushback, it's usually the fees. They may only rent it out for the Packer games. And otherwise they live there the rest of the time. Or, there's examples of a person I just spoke with today who will rent it out long-term for 8-9 months. And then use it for the short term for the rest of the time. So if you're not making a lot because it's a shorter, a 3-month time frame, I don't know. So, but that's
It's a
all
weird one
speculation.
situation,
All speculation.
right.
Some people are just, libertarian, my property, I do what I want. It's, all kinds of different reasons. I think the vast majority are just ignorance that they need one.
Because I would think hypothetically, the revenue you would get from the game would exceed.
Not
Alright, see,
necessarily,
some
it
of those
depends on
fees.
your mortgage, well, it depends, you have to think about your mortgage, and you gotta think about all the different, there are a lot of bills involved.
And there's,
Running a property
and
like
there's
that,
a lot of
so,
short-term rentals that are not near the city.
right.
There's short-term rentals all over. I have a good friend who has one on 100 block of Maple.
And I looked at that property when it was for sale, it's like literally 2 doors south from the food trip,
It's
no,
blue
because it
now.
was rough.
Oh,
It's not
it
rough
was-
anymore.
Oh, they didn't, it's good that they did nice things, but then that isn't a neighborhood where,
Well, she lives on First Floor.
oh,
Sure, it's
okay,
up
so I
that
guess
way.
that
So there
makes
you go.
sense too, I
But She
understand
does it
that.
mainly because of the farmers markets, the festivals downtown. And she gets,
The
gets
market's
a
not
restaurant,
for
she
buyers
lives there,
right now.
so that's just extra income for her.
yeah.
So there's all kinds of reasons why people do it. Some people do it as a business.
But you think about the vast majority is they just don't. We hope.
I think the vast majority just don't know, and if they're not being regulated, why pay?
Well, they'll get a letter pretty soon.
Correct. And we have over, 250 short-term rentals who came in, got their permits, and we have some very good short-term rental owners as well. So it's always the bad apples that rule for everybody.
That's not fair.
What
percentage are operated by management companies compared to operated just by people who
I
choose to
wouldn't-
put up? the-
I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm guessing here, but maybe 25%,
Okay.
30%. But it's increasing, I've noticed with applications, and we've even received foreign applications where the owners have never been to the United States. But they're buying properties around any NFL, NBA team and just buying up housing, because housing here is cheap compared to anywhere you are.
With the conversation about the fees, you said Ashwaubenon is a little bit higher than us. And we're at 500 right now, according to this. So do you know what Ashwaubenon is.
I believe they're 1,000.
Madam Chair, just to interrupt, I believe Alder Hutchinson has to leave, so I think he's
Okay.
trying to get in here.
Yes, I just want to note that I'm leaving. I'll get to vote on this next Tuesday as part of the council. I'm in favor of this, so have fun voting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alder Hutchinson.
So with the difference in the fee structure, do you see people as being an incentive of trying to come to Green Bay instead and pay the fee? The fine instead in Green Bay, I mean, if they're looking at where to operate, either Ashwaubenon or Green Bay, and
Yeah.
if they see that Green Bay's get fine is half what it is in Ashwaubenon. And those people who would not be in compliance, do you think that would be incentive to come to Green Bay and not be in compliance?
Well, I mean, the fines are gonna be, I'm not sure what Robin's fines are, that's their permit fee.
Plus a permit.
But to be really kind of honest, most of the stuff around the stadium, it's location. So if they have to pay 1,000 or 500, to them, it's not gonna matter too much. Where that fee change really is gonna help us. There's a $500 first fee, then it's $250. So it's gonna get people to renew it, because if they don't renew it by July 1st,
Right.
maybe not this first year, then it'll be 500, not 250.
Sure, but I was referring to for a violation, the penalties would not exceed.
Oh, well, and that per day. 500 per day.
Oh,
Oh.
Up to
no,
500 per day.
Up to.
It doesn't say that.
It's in the.
So maybe it'd be per rental, but if they're advertising it every day, it's per. That's kind of a lawyer question.
In part 12, number 12.
12 violations, and it says penalties for each violation.
Right, so it might be advertising, now that we have advertising, it might be rental, because now we have quasi-proof when it's rented. And also, like I said, you can get reviews that come on there too. I stayed there on May 2nd, it was
Right.
beautiful, wow.
Mhm.
Lies.
I don't understand the notion that it's for every night. Penalties for each violation. If I rented it out for 5 days, I consider that one violation.
Well, and that might be the case. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure, that might be
Okay,
attorney
we
inspection.
ask you about this. It sounds like this really does need to be amended in order to clarify that the violation is per night.
We can, but also remember that it's also for advertising too, so it wouldn't necessarily matter that you actually are renting or occupying, it's also for advertising as well. That,
Because as long as you're advertising, you have a property available and you're not permitted to do that.
right, that's what we're considering, and
Got
that's,
it.
that's proof that you're operating a short-term rental.
But that, if I advertised it,
Mhm.
it would be one violation.
Every time that you're advertising it, each day would be a new violation.
That's,
Because it's not-
that's what I still don't get, is where does this each day or each night come in?
Well, because you can't just say, well, it's a one-time fee, I'll just pay it once and then leave me alone.
I think that gives us some leeway to scare people into compliance.
And that is pretty
But
much.
it's, I've never seen the city go crazy about
Yeah.
anything. They're very
You know,
reasonable.
to your point earlier, it's about compliance, right?
Right.
It's not about, we need.
Punishment.
To do it.
We want you to be doing the things.
That's what I'm saying, is this does not scare me.
Okay,
$500 a day doesn't scare you?
No, it doesn't say a day.
Oh, we wanted to scare them. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good.
Right, okay, I see. what you're saying.
patient.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead, Neil.
Just, I guess, want to compare it to what we do with, like, say, a building inspection violation. So even though if inspector goes out, finds that a permit hasn't been achieved, he goes back the very next day, there's still not a permit achieved, then that's an additional violation for every single day. So I think there is certainly practice in terms of how other ordinances are implemented, in terms of not being a permitted use or a permitted activity, that it is definitely a daily violation. So, and not that our guys would actually be going out every single day to do that. However, the ordinance would allow them to do that. And in the case of health and safety, they might actually go out and do a daily inspection to try to get something completed. But generally it'd be more like a weekly or a week to 10 days to check on, to see whether or not, probably in this case, I think like a weekly reinspection to see if they had actually achieved their permit would probably be more appropriate. But we do have the ability in case of, like I said, if it was a health and safety issue that was someplace this was not only just with the matter of the permit of this particular use, but also just general building codes and zoning codes that also could be applicable as well. So.
And that's very typical for, I was for years, and that's what we did. We would end up giving them a 5-day fine, and then that was enough to shock them.
Yeah.
But we could do it every single day. We didn't have inspection fees, but you could tack those on as well.
And I know, and will this go through inspection, is it inspection division too?
Yeah, they
Okay.
were part of.
So your inspectors, okay, because I've found the inspectors not, now I've bought properties that were out of compliance. My properties didn't fall out of compliance when I had them, but I bought them out of compliance and I found the inspectors to be very reasonable to work with, as long, you know, if you were actually trying to do the work.
As Logan had mentioned, it's all about compliance. I mean, if you don't have the money or you can't find a contractor, we will extend those.
And that's
deadlines.
absolutely a problem,
But in this case, as Neil had said, if it's a life safety issue, we'll
right?
make sure you're not renting.
Right, no, absolutely, right. And that's where the health inspection comes in too, all of that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Can I just add real quick back to Commissioner Portick's comment about that? Ideally, Michael, we would like the ordinances and things to be as similar as possible to kind of avoid that shopping across the boundary. So I think as we continue to work on these times, we are actually looking at doing additional coordination with actually the village of Schwabenon on this very issue for that reason. So yeah, we don't want to be in a position where they're causing one to kind of flood or hop across to the other one. Just in terms of, you know, for the most part, it's just the real estate cost that's kind of keeping it driving where they're locating in their proximity to the stadium. But we don't want to cause that an undue stress because there is a drastic difference between the ordinances. So that is something we are going to be looking at as we go forward with this.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to, and I'm fine with the application fee, makes total sense. I think the cost makes sense but it's the fine element that would be concerning. The other piece is that since it seems to be Alder Weary had the communication originally that started all of this, has he looked at the language? Have you had any comments for staff?
Well, you would have a copy of the plan commission. We didn't invite it here, but it does go to council.
Sure.
right here.
If he hasn't.
Wow.
And I would suspect one of Alder Weary's questions would be, are we finding enough for this particular item? He will probably ask, because I believe he even asked about that, even when we updated just our regular fee schedule when we were working on that with Logan. I think he actually brought that question up as to whether or not that was the maximum fee or penalty we could impose on that. So I would imagine a similar question would be coming forth, probably from him at council.
It'll probably be a conversation, I guess.
But as long as it gives us the flexibility, like Sid was saying, to do it every day and to do other things.
My problem is the person to whom it is done every day. If I were that person, I would blow sky high.
They do.
Right, and those are generally the people that are the biggest problems.
It's your house.
Those people that are not doing stuff, right,
And
that's.
said how even our inspections work. So the inspectors will go out. They
They're
give
so
them notice,
reasonable.
Every day.
and that's usually between 7 and 30 days to correct. So you have that whole time frame to correct the situation. In this case, it'd probably be a 7.
And generally in that letter, it also says if you are not compliant, this section of code will go into effect. This is the amount of fees that you could be charged. So like they get that information up front too.
If they do, then I'm
They
fine.
do.
Right, and plus the inspectors too, if there's a situation, like it's the winter and they're saying you have to paint your house, they will give you that, they're gonna give you till spring, they're not gonna say you have to have it done, I don't care about the weather. So they're, I
Right.
mean, right,
And I assume if someone was found out of compliance and they had to go through the process with the county, et cetera. The city would work with them on that, I mean,
Oh, for
within the 30-day window. So you're not gonna be saying, do all this, it's impossible to do in the next how many days?
Again, it's getting the compliance, that's the big thing. I think that one of the biggest issues that I've had over the last year is people trying to. Actually, before this past year, try to trickle information in, like, well, here I have my health inspection. Nothing else. Then they'll send another item in a little while later. I don't know if it's a stall tactic or it is that they just.
that's when they're getting stuff.
But we cannot track that. We have so many, there's paperwork everywhere.
And that's
So
the
we
reason
do have a
for the
regulation,
requirement that
everything comes
everything
out.
be right at the same time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering. why that was.
And I mean, honestly, this process is so much better than what our prior process was for approving short-term rentals, which is having them all come before us.
Or
here.
for them
We wouldn't have room in City Hall if we needed to do that now. Yeah, it'd be awful.
Planning, every single one had to come through planning. You blacked it out. I think I had a newborn then.
Worked on that. Oh my gosh.
Some of us were before I got here.
Oh, you didn't even experience that. Oh, yeah, and it was room fulls of people every time.
Because the neighbors never wanted.
They didn't want it. I know.
Motion to
Surprise, surprise.
Oh,
Vice Chair Miller?
no.
Oh, that was Michael.
Right.
Okay.
I have two questions, quick, sorry, if I can sneak them in. You're talking about compliance and ignorance, sometimes it's just not knowing what to do. Currently, if you just type in City of Green Bay short-term rental permit, you get driven right to the application
Right.
on there. I would consider maybe a landing page, something that can give like a quick FAQ or something to, because if you're looking through this and you're just perusing,
Right.
and also in regards to the code and what we're trying to deliver there, most people are not gonna read the code. They're gonna
Right.
maybe look for whatever they can. So I think trying to find the easiest way to convey the message that you need to get a permit, here are the steps. And I know what I'm looking at here and I think I can follow it just fine, but we're
Right.
talking about some people who maybe don't have experience doing these things before. They're just trying to really lower the bar of
Well-
what, to get
As
that.
simple as possible.
Yep.
And you put in buzzwords. I just put, can I do an Airbnb in Green Bay? And it says, what's the best Airbnb? Vacation
You
rental?
get a
Okay.
bunch of. garbage.
Nothing. Like, so if you're like looking up, what's the process for a short-term rental? You put buzzwords like that,
Right.
but if you're just looking up, like, can I do this? Like,
Mhm.
man, how would you even know? Is Airbnb allowed in Bay Area? So now it's gone to San Francisco. Never mind.
So I just, no question.
Oh, City of Green Bay. So now like several pages down or several things down now, short-term rental permit application process. Oh, look at that. 500 application fee.
So no real question, more just
Ooh.
a consideration, try if that's,
I think that
trying to
you
go that way.
Yeah.
just Something to think about.
And we'll be updating our applications,
Mhm.
website, everything after we get the new code. But and that's a good point to make because our web person's right here.
Yeah. And then second part too, obviously, this is a pretty. We knew there was issues before, we're trying to improve it. This probably isn't gonna be perfect either, just acknowledging that there's a lot that's out there and you're not gonna be able to catch everything there. Is there gonna be kind of a review process? Are we expecting to maybe see this again in a year, or some period to just say, hey, how did this perform? And then some other change that might be.
Yeah, almost anytime we do a text memo, internally, we look at it. We try to do it 12 months, sometimes it's 18 months, and then fix things that aren't performing the way we anticipated. Or maybe have some kind of weird, offshoot that happens from them. And we would do the same thing with this one. Usually that comes from inspection. They have
Yeah.
issues. But yeah, just like parking, I think parking came back here 3 times. Obviously, that's much more complicated and.
I'd argue
And since
this.
then, we haven't had much issues with it at all. I think we worked the bugs out. So,
Well, cool. I don't know if you got a second, but second.
Oh, okay. All right. Do we have any further discussion or questions? We have a motion by Commissioner Praddick, and second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that will also go through to City Council for May 16th. All right, and moving on to informational. Director's report, Mr. Stickschulze.
Good evening, everybody. Just a couple of quick items. The one item that related to this that did go through Common Council for first reading here just this past Tuesday was actually a requirement to maintain identification for people staying in short-term rentals. Basically having the actual operator would need to hold on to them for any lodging accommodation. This is just hotels, short-term rentals, everybody. So they have to maintain that. They are not required to give that over, but if they could be turned over to the city in case of a warrant was issued. But this actually just simply requires those lodging institutions to maintain records of who is staying at them. So that was the one thing. So this is another area that's obviously not subject to the zoning code, but is more of an operational thing that has been kind of going through. That was just first reading just the other night. And I think the only other matter of business I wanted to bring up, and I don't know, Commissioner Miller, if anyone has asked you or not, just want to make sure to see if you wish to have your be renewed as a plan commissioner. I think your term is coming up, so.
Yeah, I
Don't.
would.
There we go. That's all I needed to know. So that's just a yes, and you will be probably put on the next or next city council agenda to get renewed. So.
Neil, does it say when I started? This is year 7?
Oh, let's see. Let me check the email from we had. It does not, but I bet I can get that information though from you.
I want to say
For sure.
2016. but
It was 2016, because I was just months before you, I
It's on the
think.
website.
Yeah, it does say on the Green Bay website.
Oh,
too.
yeah. Well, I don't know for it. I had-
So we're just getting you broke in other words. So,
2016.
and actually, that's all I have for this evening, Madam Chair. So,
All right.
and available to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Oh, I got one. Neil, I thought you think you could maybe get this past this, but I noticed the nugget in the RDA agenda tomorrow, for the Adams Street lot.
Yes.
A conversation was had on May 3rd. What can you tell us about that conversation, or what can't you tell us?
Essentially what is being brought up back forward is essentially the easement that was being requested. Essentially, it has been determined at this point that it is required by code if for both lots wish to develop, that essentially that 30-foot easement needs to be present between those two buildings. We actually do have an interested developer looking at the Adams Street parking lot. So actually could be bringing a very quality project forward on that. So this is a situation that we did have. Essentially, for folks reading that, we did have a meeting with several RDA members and Mr. Belster representing the condo association. You know, they are essentially proceeding with converting a significant amount of the second floor into residential multifamily units. So essentially he's proceeding with that. The other item that was in play is essentially the RDA owned a corner property of the building that essentially the parcel line actually went through the building, something that never should have been allowed in the first place, but for some reason was approved about 10 years ago. So there was essentially a transition of that property over to the condo association. Again, the requirements there would have been, if we did not do that, there would have been a requirement to essentially put up a party wall, a firewall between the two buildings, essentially right along the actual ownership line. That really had no functional use and was quite a bit of an expense. So essentially that were the two key main items that have kind of been really, dispensed with. The original one was the corner lot. This one would actually be transition of that easement. But that project, that redevelopment project is proceeding essentially at this point in the Bay Lake City Center building. So with the multifamily units, about 72 units, I believe, are being proposed inside that building.
That is interesting.
Interesting indeed.
Which is permitted, and the use is permitted by the zoning code. So there is not a zoning evaluation that will be, in fact, essentially had to meet, the project does have to meet building code, however.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Neil.
Thank you, everybody.
Date of the next meeting is May 22nd, 2023.
May 22nd, that's after, no. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?